We set out to say, where are our members going and how might we solve that? Too many CEOs don't know their value proposition. They're always aspiring for somebody else's. We all know that the strongest level of responsibility and ownership in your primary accountability with the understanding that greatness comes through collaboration. When you choose to do something, what's the reason why you choose to do it?
Yeah. They call you crazy until they call you for
advice.
You're listening to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast, a podcast that delivers value and offers up insight that'll help your credit union grow. ServiceStar has been consulting with credit unions for over 20 years, growing them in the areas of cultural development, leadership development, and management training. To learn more about what ServiceStar can do for you or your credit union, check them out at servicestarconsulting.com.
This is the Credit Union Leadership Podcast, and today we are so blessed to be joined by Jed Meyer. Hello, Jed.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
It's a good day that we're talking to you. But Jed, you don't look forward to Fridays like most people do. Jed, please share with the Credit Union Leadership listeners here what day you look forward to the most.
Yeah, I think I look forward to Mondays the most. Obviously, we love work-life balance around here, and I have plenty of things to look forward to this weekend. But from a career perspective, I'm ready to head back on Monday mornings. We're loving what we're doing right now.
Now, Jed, your and I's kind of history goes way back, but we've never really kind of connected a lot. And in the short periods of times that I have connected, I've actually gotten so much from you. That saying was one of the things that I've, let's say, borrowed from you. I look forward to Mondays because I do too. I genuinely look forward to Mondays. But the thing that makes us the most different, and the thing that I think makes you maybe different than most CEOs, is your ability to focus. Last time you and I were talking, you were talking about a book that you had recently published. And I'm looking at some of these articles as to why we got you on the podcast. And Fred, you got one that says, Jed Meyer named finalist for Credit Union Times 2025 Luminaries Award. I'm like, this is amazing. We got to get this guy on the podcast, because I saw the other one which says President and CEO of St. Cloud Federal Credit Union is added to the most successful business leaders to watch list. And then I saw another one that said you presented at GAC. And then I saw another one that said St. Cloud Federal Credit Union, first credit union ever to create a stable coin. And I'm like, we got to get this dude on. So
yeah, here we are.
Jed, your ability to focus is what you told me your differentiator is in the market. I've had Chase Larson on this podcast twice to talk about crypto. You've had a big year, my friend. How has your ability to focus and kind of focus on the journey, the process, the looking forward to Monday, get you to the place where you could look back and have so many articles to kind of talk about your success in the previous year?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is everything you just described were outcomes, not goals, right? I think that's the first thing people have to remember. Nobody aspires to be on the tip of the spear in the digital asset. At least we don't. That's not how we're built. And, it's a years and years worth of being disciplined in our institution of saying, hey, we're a scaling organization. Where might our members go? How might we serve them when they get there? What would we have to do in order to do those things? So our crypto journey started in 2019, right? So because we knew the faster we do a little bit of work in our scaling company, the less human capital I'll need when we actually go to launch, right? Like the worst case scenario for us is if our members demand something from us that we've done no work on, and we have to stop every other strategy and then actually move our human capital towards solving that need, right? And so we're always trying to stay out ahead of ourselves. We don't have to launch to do the work, right? We weren't ready to launch. We didn't start the crypto journey in 2019 thinking we were going to launch in 2020. It was one of those more of saying, hey, maybe we won't even do anything here, but we need to understand this space because it's going to impact us. And then as we started to understand this space and watch consumer behavior, we obviously then jumped on the opportunities that exist. And there's tons of synergies that exist there. And so I think, and it's also why our solution is the only core-centric solution that you see, is because we actually didn't set out to create technology. We set out to say, where are our members going and how might we solve that? So we started with the member and worked outwards. And that's the reason why we're one of the only solutions that has the ability to truly bridge TradFi and DeFi while you maintain the member and the owner and serve them in the way that you have for the last 100 years by being their trusted access point and aggregator of their financials in their local community. That's what we're accomplishing. So all of those things that you're describing are really outcomes from those strategies. And so for us, it's really a strategic advantage we have, right? Something you hear me talk about, if you've heard me out there talking, is Too many CEOs don't know their value proposition. They're always aspiring for somebody else's. So if I'm a small credit union, I might be aspiring to be a big credit union because of all the advantages they have, but I'm not actually necessarily paying attention to all the disadvantages they have that might be advantages for me, right? They're a cruise ship. They're really hard to turn, hard to change culture. Sometimes it takes 30 executives to get in a room over 3 months to make a decision. Where we are like a speedboat, we can turn on a dime. We can make really important decisions with the right people at the table today. Even though it's not scheduled, we can do that today. We can get all of our employees in a room and influence culture from the CEO directly. That's an advantage I have over a CEO who has 500 employees. And so, again, we all have our advantages and disadvantages. Of course, if you're bigger, you can make more mistakes. You might have more liquidity. You might have more cash to do some things because the software oftentimes costs the same amount for them or us as well. So the goal is understanding what their strengths are and what yours are, and then how are you leveraging your strengths rather than just aspiring to have those strengths that they have. And I think that's the key to making sure you're staying intimate and connected to your members, but also running an organization that has the ability to be a perpetual organization when everybody around us is consolidating so quickly. And that doesn't mean that we're absolved from it. It's actually a strategy we have as well. We've had a merger document where we're not the survivor, where we're a merger of equal, or where we acquire someone. What's important to us? All the hard questions are already answered. We have our things. So when people approach us, we give them the sheet and say, this is what we're looking for. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to run a business. And the board gave me really one major goal here, which is we want to make sure 100 years from now, our members still have a local option, no matter what that looks like, to be a perpetual organization for the next 100 years. That's a pretty big goal to give a CEO young in 2014. Yeah. And I said, okay, do you understand what that means? Let's start looking at that. But that means running a business, all that's on the table, including QSOs and diversification of income and regional diversification, some of the things that we've also done in my time here.
Yeah, and you just said so much that we could embark on that I would love to embark on, because who doesn't love small ship versus big ship? And who doesn't kind of tremble with fear when they hear merger? And I think your background uniquely prepared you for your role, because most people don't know that you were a professional ball player. And
not professional, no, but yes, I did play ball, yes.
So tell me about your baseball upbringing and where you could find those competitive edges, those opportunities, those windows that most people overlook because maybe they do have their eyes on the pros, or maybe they do have their eyes, they're comparing themselves to something else that they can't be, but you can kind of maximize your opportunity right in front of you.
Yeah, baseball is a great sport. There's plenty of them out there, right? But just using baseball as the analogy, the reality is that it's a game of failure, right? So it's a mental game, right? And at the end of the day, if you're good 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer, right? Like that's the reality, and that's hard when you're a kid, but you learn a lot of lessons through the slumps and all the other things that happen. It's one of the mentalities of my team here, as we talk about all the time here, is we do get 3 swings, right? And the only time we should ever be upset is if we didn't swing at the last pitch to lose the game, right? If I swung a miss, I can run back to the dugout with my head held high because I gave our chance as self to win. And ultimately, you're going to get some walk-offs and some of those things at an end of the game. So you learn those things, right? Individual performance versus collective performance, because you could go 5 for 5 and lose the game as well. And so baseball is an awesome sport to learn kind of how to run a business of, hey, it takes the collaborative group. We all know that the strongest level of responsibility and ownership in your primary accountability, with the understanding that greatness comes through collaboration, right? That's kind of our mentality around here of like, hey, we got to know that you have your primary accountability, but we also have to understand that that our greatness could come when you allow people to beat up what you're already doing, and you're vulnerable enough to do that as a leader, to have people sharpen the stuff that you're working on from a collaborative perspective. So yeah, I think baseball has influenced my leadership a lot in those respects.
Now, I've talked to former athletes all the time, and there's never really a such thing as a former athlete. You're always kind of working on your craft. You never know when you're going to get the call, right? So, yeah. maybe there is, maybe there's that, replacements where everyone in the MLB quits and they're calling up the minors. But, your leadership has shown not only at your credit union, but also you're part of some boards. You're on the city council. Is there a Jed clone out there somewhere? How do you manage all the fires that you have going on? Is it focus? Is that kind of the key to having the business that you own is a Family Achievement Center in central Minnesota? You're the chairperson of the board at Dayland. You're a council member of the city of Sartell. How do you keep it all together?
Yeah, I'm like everybody else where I say yes to too many things at certain times. There's plenty that I'm doing that are not on that list still as well. So I think, I go through like everybody else where you have to decouple sometimes, and you can't say yes to everything. But if you can help, you want to say yes, especially when it's good for the community, and for your business. So I go through the same thing everybody else does. But I think that the number one reason is that when you choose to do something, what's the reason why you choose to do it, right? And so I tell people who come to work here all the time, nobody comes in and says human connections, horrible strategy. I don't want to be a part of that, right? Like I don't want to actually sit in front of an owner on every transaction and have to do what's in their best interest every single time, even if it's a maybe not as great as of a business decision I could have made. People love working in those environments, right? But what I tell them all the time is if you're excited about how that makes you feel, don't come work here because it's really hard to build relationships on trust, right? If I'm at a place where they don't care about that and widgets selling is all I have to do, I don't actually have to worry about the connection because the reality is our members don't want to stand in line longer than a minute and a half either, to build that relationship, just like they might not at a large national bank. At the end of the day, so to build a human connection in the same amount of time while being accurate and doing all the things we ask our tellers to do, it's harder to work here. And so if you get the joy out of the things you're doing based on the outcome of them and how you're helping and impacting others, that's where I kind of get my solace of when I'm having my tough days or when I feel like I'm overwhelmed. It really kind of goes back to that of like, hey, at least the time I'm spending or this stress is actually going to equate to something great for our community. And ultimately, that's what community financial institutions do, right? We need to be the fabric of the community, right? We're what keeps the local economy resilient. The more global things become, the banker in Charlotte or San Francisco or Minneapolis doesn't care about the farmer down the street, but I see him in the grocery store and I see him at church and some of those things. And so that intimacy is really important. It's the reason why I wanted to go from a multi-billion-dollar credit union to a small credit union to be a CEO. Career-wise, I'm sure that cost me money or whatever it doesn't matter because I wanted to look forward to Mondays and do it in a way that, we could really, fulfill that role here in our community. And I think we've done a pretty good job of it so far.
Yeah, so 2014, you took the helm. In 2025, you're there with your wife in Florida for the luminaries kind of ceremonies, and all along the way, you've kind of documented your journey. Actually, that's how you and I met. Is that I wanted to ask you if you'd be willing to review my book, and you said, "Hey, Scott, I have my own book. How about them apples?"
Yeah.
And as I've kind of interviewed Chase Larson multiple times on this podcast to talk about things that I still don't understand, I can really understand your book. I can understand the acronym that you've built out for a purpose, and I really think that our listeners would benefit from understanding some of the more simple things you started out in 2014 that has led to all of the awards, all of the recognition, and all of the unique ways in which you're positioned to be there 100 years from now for your member. So tell me about the book. What's in this little book of goldness, if you can summarize it?
Well, the beauty of that book is that it's actually not published externally, right? It's an internal resource for us to scale, right? I am planning on writing my second one next year that will be for the public. So you can hold me accountable to that. I've been in conversations for that, but this one was really more internally of saying, hey, not everybody's been on the journey for the last 10 years when we were writing that. As we continue to scale, the lessons we learned along the journey are really important for future people to work here. And so if you read it, there's places in that book where the new employees will actually reach out to me directly and I'll respond to them as a part to discuss the book while they're going. And the goal there really is just so they get some contextual learning into where we've gone or where we've come from. I think we're a really good balance of progressive innovation. We've gotten good at quantifying risk and taking deliberate risk on purpose. We'd rather be deliberately wrong than accidentally right because we can repeat and learn the behavior, but really we're also very traditional, right? Like when I first came here, I mean, you go from a multi-billion, the hardest thing to do when you get bigger is all CEOs or executives have worked on, right? You get further removed, right? You're leading an organization through process and procedure and not people. Well, I can control the people a little bit easier from the intimate and the influence of the outcome I'm looking for. We start getting bigger, you lose that intimacy a little bit, right? And so that's why the book is written to say, hey, we want to maintain that. We want to see if we can scale it maybe differently than others have along the way. So we're very traditional. So when I came here in 2014, it was really to say, I think the cooperative model is something, it's like a race car that we drive around the neighborhood. What would it look like if we got it out on the Autobahn, right? Like, what could that machine really do, right? From people helping people. And so we have a saying around here: we're not trying to revolutionize anything necessarily, even though that's an outcome sometimes. We're really ultimately saying, at the end of the day, how do we be different by degree? So do it better than anybody else. How do we get deeper in every relationship? How do we have more frequency of the delivery model of the service and the experience that we want? And then how do we have more authenticity in everything we do beyond the interaction and the transaction? What I think is the most important part to state, because I think service is table stakes, right? And so the world has caught up to the credit union industry on how to provide good service. And so that's table stakes. And the only way to go from a service experience. So if you start with a coffee bean, it's a commodity, right? If I customize that commodity bean into ground coffee, I now have customized it into a different product. And then when I take that coffee grounds and I put it in a gas station, a cup of coffee, I've now customized it again. And then when I put it into an experience at Starbucks, so every time you customize something, you're moving up the continuum of how you're making people feel. And every time you move down it, you're commoditizing it, right? And so when you get to high levels of service, well, what's the next step, right? The next step is experience-based economy, right? You're creating an experience. The only way to take high levels of service and create an experience is to customize that experience. And so those are a lot of our strategies as well, is to say, hey, if we're not great in the digital asset space, we're not going to be able to customize the experience for the consumers that want to go there. We thought originally it was going to be 2-3% of our members. What we're finding is it's 22% before it's mainstream today. What we're finding is that our deposits have gone from 1 million to an exchange 2 years ago to 15 million this year, and people are sending money to exchanges, right? And so we understand, how do we customize that experience? 2019, we also launched our multicultural division here. We looked at our population of 200,000 MSA and 28,000 members and said, hey, what realistically, with 41 other financial institutions in town, of which we're the smallest. The good news is the community thinks we're the biggest, which means our brand is doing well, but we're actually the smallest of those 41. And so in our market, how much market share should we expect out of 200,000 people at 28,000 members already? And if we were to expect more, what would that look like? How could we customize a service that would get us there? How could we raise our hand to be number one? And digital assets came out of that 2019 and said, nobody in our community is trying to be number one here and provide this service to our members. And the other thing we looked at and said, nobody's trying to customize the experience for the 12% of our population that is actually immigrant population and came from a different ethnic background. And so we have a Latino council now that we've built. We have an East African council we've built. We have an African American council we built, who really are our litmus test of members who are informing us on how can we get better in their community. We'll have some Sharia law products that we're launching next year to serve that side of our membership. But again, if you're hearing a consistent theme, we don't set out to say, how do we find the next shiny object so we can get newspaper and magazines to write stuff about us or maybe win some awards. We're starting with a member and working outwards. And ultimately, we're not afraid to do the work, show up every day with our lunch pails, look forward to Monday. And when you take a team of talented people and you put them into an organization, where I have been able to say since the first day they walked in, to say, hey, we're not a survivor. So I want you to approach your job every day on what would you do differently to actually become a survivor. That creates a little bit of an innovative thought process, right? And then if you're really good at making sure that they're, one, quantifying, identifying the risk, they're avoiding the risk when they can't quantify it. We never make the end game decision around here. So when we take a risk, we understand that even if it goes completely the opposite way, we're going to be just fine. So that's a litmus test we use often when we're making decisions. And we don't beat each other up when we were wrong. We actually celebrate the fact that you took a swing. You still got 2 more swings. Nobody struck out yet. It's not a big deal. That's the way the world works today. Keep moving forward, keep pushing the envelope, and keep being able to articulate back to the executive ownership group and stakeholders that you are managing the risk appropriately. That's not putting any of us else at risk. And so your models have to be disciplined in that way. So when you're saying, hey, discipline and some of that stuff, yeah, I think our processes and our models in making those decisions, which I would say is probably one of the biggest challenges credit unions need to face, right? Our decision-making process, this will be in my book next year, has to change. The world around you has changed. You're not going to be able to, I don't care if you're 5 billion, 20 billion, if it takes 30 people to get in a room over 4 months period of time for you to equal empowerment by saying, hey, I want to give my talented people the ability to make a decision. But the outcome of that is that it takes me 4 months to make a good decision in a world that's changing every 4 days.
Yeah.
I don't know if those two things match. And so I would strongly encourage people to start looking at that process of, hey, yes, I want my talented people. They have the ability to inform me, use their talents to give us the right decisions, but we can't do it over a 3 month period of time, even if you're 5 billion, right? I'm not saying being reckless, but you're going to have to find different ways to get to solid, strong decisions in a little bit quicker manner than we maybe did have to do 10 years ago. So
I like it. The book's not published, but neither is the drip. Tell me a little bit about your brands. You said, hey, we're the smallest fish in the pond, but everyone thinks that we're like the largemouth bass,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
8 pounder. How much does the drip, how much does the media impact? I mean, I was able to find 5 articles on you in 5 minutes. How much of that matters to a CEO in 2025?
Well, it matters for what reason, all right? Like it does. I love the accomplishment. I personally hate the attention. That's not how I'm built. I like to come in here and just do my work, and that's kind of how I'm built. I'm a little more introverted that way. I always thought I was extroverted until I actually got this job. Then I realized I don't really like all that stuff because I think it can be distracting at times.
Yeah.
But I do think there should be some specific strategies there, right? We're obviously launching a new foundation that we've launched in the last year and a half. We haven't even touched on that yet. That we've launched. We've already given away 200,000. Have 10 partners across the country. It's a fiduciary built for other credit unions. So if anybody hears this, Triunity Foundation, it's built for your credit union to serve your members. Has nothing to do with our credit union. I promise you, it's a no-brainer. So call us. We'll let you know how we've built that for you guys. And we've already given, like I said, first year we're $200,000 in. We'll give away more than 10 million in the next 10 years is our goal. And it's helping members who are facing a terminal illness pay their debt so they can go through treatment, right? It's a place that credit union should show up, and we found a way to show up in a way that's different than we've done in the past, and that's why we created the foundation. So that's pretty cool stuff that we're working on. But so we want to get the media out there because we want to tell that story, so other people are like, hey, I want to be a part of that, and then we're bringing partners in. So I think it's really important that we keep telling our story. I also think so. Here's a little golden nugget, whether I'm right or wrong. I think in a time where media is at the highest, it's probably right now is a great time to do that, right? So that's not lost on me, right? We're at the ground floor of AI, and AI is only going to inform, right? SEO is dead. Somebody told me the other day from a much larger credit union, right? It's really basically, we're not going to be going on and search engine optimization anymore. It's really going to be, what does AI tell us we should do, right? So when I have it on my wearables and my AI is actually on my glasses and not my phone, and I ask my little bot friend what's the best credit union, you're going to have some data out there. Your websites need to be built to be AI conducive as we move forward. Those are things that we're preparing. So the fact that we have a ton of media out there right now writing about us, it means AI has that much more to grab about us when people are asking the questions. So it's actually a great strategy as well at the foundational side of AI, because AI can only do with the information that's out there. And so the fact that we're putting more out there, telling our story under our terms a little bit differently, actually is not a bad strategy either.
So wait, you're literally wearing AI on your face right now?
I'm not, no, but
Okay.
that's where it's going, right? Right?
Okay.
That's where I see it going, right? In
I did not
5 years, yeah. In 5 years, I don't think we're going to be using these things as
Yeah.
much in 5 years. I think we'll be using wearables. They've been around forever, but now that AI is going to become where we'll have a personal assistant attached to anything we want to do on this, it won't be. We have the last typing generation's been, they're probably in their 30s right now. So,
Yeah.
25 years from now, I don't know that we'll have too much of a typing generation left.
So you've mentioned a lot of sayings, you've mentioned a lot of strategy, but there's one saying that you haven't mentioned yet that I'm gonna end the podcast with.
Yeah.
They call you crazy until they call you for
advice. Yeah. At first they call you crazy and then they call you for advice. And, you got to be able to be vulnerable and be a little thick skinned of saying, hey, if you've done the work, like our executives know, I will hold them accountable to two things. It's the quality of their actions and the integrity of their intent. If they make a mistake, or they don't get to control the outcome, right? If they had everything up front and the outcome's not exactly what they hope for, hey, I'll show up for them when they're at their worst, as long as they show up for me when I'm at my worst, because I'm going to be at my worst too. So the reality is we really hold those two things. Did you do the work? Did you have the right intent? Did you do everything possible? Did you bring the right people in to make that decision? And if it still was the wrong decision, what do we learn from it? How do we move on, right? Because failure needs to be a part of it, right? Anybody that tells a baseball player to go up to the plate, bat 700, they're off the team, basically should just walk off the field immediately, right? Because that's just not the case. Because the reality, if you go back to the baseball analogy to lean on this, different by degrees is a really important comment because that's the world we live in. Like the margins aren't twice as big, the pace is twice as fast, right? So when you look at that, and if you really look at like the difference between someone that was better at baseball than me and AAA and then the pros, and you have your elite people who can do it in their sleep, right? It looks like a beach ball that's coming at them, right? When it's a 100-mile fastball, you have those people. But the most people who make the professional level, it's really determination and their ability to hone in that skill. The difference of degree of someone who plays high school baseball to college is I think it's like 95% of high school athletes don't actually, it's like 3 or 5% actually play college baseball, right? So we already know that number. Of that 5%, who then moves on to the next level and the next level, some of that's more determination than it is skill set, because at the end of the day, did they figure out what works for them and how they would do that, right? And so I think that's very similar to running a business as well. And to say, hey, at the end of the day, I might not be the guy that can see stuff coming like a beach ball, like somebody else is more naturally talented, but we'll definitely do the work and get there eventually. It's not, we always say it's not a matter of if we win, it's just a matter of how long it takes us.
Now, for those of you that don't live in Minnesota, we're talking about baseball, and in my mind, it is pro. I mean, you got grown men going to stadiums that people actually pay to go see, and they're playing ball. Now, it's not AAA. It's not, the Cleveland Indians minor team, but like Jed was playing in front of audiences in Minnesota. I don't know what you call that. We definitely don't have it in Ohio. But when I was driving around your little city there and other cities in Minnesota, I was like, what are these? And then Megan shared with me, Jed, that's what Jed used to do. He's a grown man playing baseball in front of the fans. I was like, that's awesome. Yeah. That's so cool. So what was your position in baseball?
Short in college, short in high school, third in college.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
And then, and what was the name of the team that you played for in college? What was the mascot there?
Bulldog.
All right. So from Bulldog to stablecoin, who would have thought, right? Who would have predicted this is your path? I'm gonna leave with your final comment. I'm gonna give you the last word. You got the Credit Union Leadership Podcast here. You probably have, if I'm guessing, credit union leaders listening to this podcast. What's one thing that you definitely wanted to share with the credit union leaders today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, and that's why it's such an honor to be on a luminary stage, right? You're surrounded by people who aren't afraid to go do stuff and really say, how do I push the limits? How do I test the limits? Even if that means, hey, I have to take some risks, my board gets a little uncomfortable. Our regulars, examiners are a little uncomfortable, right? At the end of the day, their job is different than ours. Ours is to run a company, theirs is to protect the share insurance fund, and we get to get along, but we also get to have the chance to say, hey, I have a business friend, so my goals are a little bit different than you. And so I think having CEOs who are bold enough to really care about our industry enough to be a part of that conversation, rather than really just a pastor in the back of the bus, is nice to be in that company. And my last parting words for any leader in today's fast-paced, fast-moving world, heavy consolidation credit unions, and we haven't even seen DeFi yet and how that's going to change our lives. Specifically, is that if you don't know your value proposition today, you should go find a merger partner, right? If you can't answer the question as to what would cause a consumer to walk out of your competitor's doors, across your parking lot, into your branch and stay, you don't even have to be right, but you have to say that's our value proposition. We know here, we are absolutely strong in technology here, but it is not our value proposition. Our goal is not to be the most convenient technology advanced institution. It's also not low cost provider. That's not our value proposition, right? It's human connection. And we know we provide a service, and maybe we're wrong, and we have to merge into somebody at some other point. But the reality is, if you don't know that, right? Like I'm going to Robert Lawton, maybe, I can't remember the name, but a quote back from the day of like, hey, if you don't know where you're going, any road will lead you there, right? So you're going to have to pick a destination, pick a road. It's more important than it's ever been. You can't fake it till you make it. The old adage of, don't do anything at the credit union and batten down the hatches through the tough times. And then when you get to the other side, the boomerang of business will come back and we'll be just fine. I don't know that that's going to happen this time in the same way that it has in 2010 and 9-ish and back into the 2000 or 2005-ish, right? I've been through a lot of those late 80s. I wasn't a part of those, but, I think the business is going to look a little bit different as it comes back the next time in a way that it never has, right? The innovation of DeFi, the life cycle of a dollar. If I lost the innovation 10 years ago, at some point during the life cycle of that dollar that I lost business on had to hit a centralized ledger or a liquidity pool. And at those moments of that life cycle, I had a chance to earn that dollar back into my business. Right. When a dollar leaves right now for DeFi, it may never come back to TradFi unless we've established the ability for it to easily do so, as well as to create ourselves as the access point and trusted advisor for our members and for our communities in that space. Now I got a chance to get that dollar back. Or at least participate or turn that dollar into what I've turned TradFi into, which is a new business and making a little bit of margin and giving it back to my members as we move forward. So I look at it as a money network. People think of crypto very differently. I look at it as a new money network, no different than Visa, MasterCard back in the day, no different than internet in the late 90s, feeling really out of sorts and very different to us. That's where I think DeFi is taking us, and we're happy to be out in front of it. I feel confident that we're prepared at our credit union, right? And I feel good that the message seemed to have switched a little bit in talking to other CEOs here recently, where now I'm not convincing them that they should pay attention to the blockchain and DeFi space. Now it's more they're asking really good questions. I still think the pace is to the change that I think it could go faster than we're thinking. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm prepared. That's great. Others will become prepared. They're at least looking at it now. And I think it's really important for our industry as we move forward. So know your value proposition. Build a culture where you look forward to Mondays, and you won't work a day in your life. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, you're like the Brett King of the credit union industry, Bank 6.0. I'm sorry if I just revealed the name of your new book.
No.
So congratulations. You were named the finalist of the Credit Union Times 2025 Luminary Awards, but you've done so much more than that, dude. So I'm honored that you gave the time to the leaders of the credit union industry. I'm going to give them advice now. Go listen to this episode again in 6 months, and then go listen to it. I think we did a lot of future casting. I think there's some terms maybe you want to slow down and chat GPT what that means, because I personally am going to have to rewind and just to get on that bleeding edge of what's next. So thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Well, and thank you for everything you do too. We don't get to say that to you enough. I think that not enough people understand that the work you're doing, getting these messages out, the training you're doing inside of these credit unions is absolutely contributing to the positive side of less consolidation than less, for sure.
So thanks again, Jed, for being on the Credit Union Leadership Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Interested in submitting a question to the Credit Union Leadership Podcast, we want to hear from you. Go in our show notes. We have a link over there, and in that link, it's going to take you to two options. You can submit a question written out through email, or you can submit an audio recording through SpeakPipe. We make it super easy. Go to the link in the show notes, click audio recording. Once you click audio recording, it's going to take you straight to a website where you just press the record button. You've got 90 seconds to submit a question or submit you catching doing somebody do it right. And then you just type in your name and email address, and that's it. It comes straight to us, and we'll take it from there. So you don't need to download anything. You don't need to get any new software. You just go to this website, press record, and click submit, and we're good to go. So go to the link in the show notes, click if you want to submit a question written out or through audio, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time. Hey, we are on YouTube. We've got video podcasts. So click the link in the show notes. Watch our YouTube video. We're working on how to get videos on Spotify and iTunes, Apple Music, things like that. But what we've learned is that people are 80% more likely to remember something if there's a visual associated with it. So watch our video podcast, comment, let us know how we can be better. Let us be part of your journey. Thank you so much. Service Stars target leadership. Credit unions executives, we cannot afford to have breakdowns in key leadership areas. If you have breakdowns in communication, what's that going to create? Unnecessary conflict, drama, and just dropping the ball. If we have breakdowns in relationship, what does this create? Mistrust, toxic environments. If there's breakdowns in alignment, we're wasting effort. We're losing time. There's division. Breakdowns in execution. Oh my gosh, we're talking about unmet goals, missed deadlines, blown budgets, and damaged credibility. These are the things you don't want. What you need to do is gain insights into your strengths and weaknesses by diagnosing each of these leadership areas and pinpointing opportunities for improvement. And guess what? Service Star Consulting and Giant Worldwide are joining forces to nurture credit union leaders who can inspire.
We've got a certified coach, Peter Tyson, who is going to test these out and work on these skills to help you develop your talent, your alignment, your reflection, your growth, your engagement, and tailored coaching sessions, one-on-one coaching sessions where you get to reflect what you've learned on during these courses. This is a great thing. If you've taken Emerging Leaders and Vertex, this is the next step in your leadership journey. This is meant for managers, directives, and executive leaders. It's also meant for people that want to become executive leaders. So don't wait. Sign up today. The link is in the show notes.